things in the gaming industry is going from bad to worse because these CEOs have lost the plot, ladies and gentlemen. They think it's okay to charge $80 for their games. But what makes it worse is the fact that they come out and they say, if you are a real gamer, if you are a real fan, a true fan of these games, of these properties, then you will find a way to pay for these overpriced games. Doesn't matter if you're Borderlands, doesn't matter if you're Nintendo with Mario Kart World. Still can't believe I live in a world where Mario Kart is going to be $80. And it doesn't matter if it's Xbox or PlayStation. These corporations just want your money. They don't care about you. They just want to milk you for every hard cent that you work for. They just want your money, and things are just getting worse and worse, especially within the past week. More importantly, the last 24 hours. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. If you're finding me for the very first time, please do me a favor. Hit that like and subscribe. It helps support the channel. And guess what? It doesn't cost you $80. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, there's been some controversy going on in the past, I would say 24 hours, where the CEO of Gearbox, the guy behind Borderlands, has come out in a tweet, since been deleted by the way. Randy Pitchford came out and said, if you are a real fan, you will find a way to buy these overpriced games. That, I'm not making this up, ladies and gentlemen. I wish I was. So I have the receipts here. It's all over Twitter, even though Randy tried to scrub it clean. He put his foot in his mouth. And as always, the internet remembers. So I'm going to throw this up. Basically, a gamer, a user, wrote a tweet to him saying, hey, Randy, this game better not be $80. Don't take that risk. A lot of gamers aren't going to pay $80 and feed the notion of constant increase of the price tag. I agree with this gamer. Should this gamer have come out and said this? I mean, everybody has a platform. They have the right to express themselves. I've expressed myself here on this channel that I will not buy the Switch 2, not because of the hardware price. I'm perfectly fine with that, but I'm not paying for inflated price. I'm not paying $80 for Mario Kart. There's no world in which I think Mario Kart is worth $80. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because depending on the person, you might value games differently. You might say, hey, I'm definitely going to get $80 worth Mario Kart. Me personally, there are very few games, if any, worth $80. I just do not spend that type of money on games. I just don't. I don't find that it's worth it. I much rather just wait for a sale to pick some of these games up. It's just, we're getting to a point where, okay, $60, then we raised it to $70, and oh, hey, guess what? $80, Mario Kart came out, and Nintendo just opened the floodgates, and then Xbox is like, hold my beer, come this fall, all of our games are going to be $80, and then guess what? Didn't take long until here comes Gearbox, here comes Borderlands, and, you know, it just opens a floodgate, and this is what gamers were afraid of. And I'm going to get into what Randy's reply is. You guys want to know what Randy's reply is? Here's Randy's reply. A, not my call, which, by the way, I just want to point out, I think that's very inaccurate, seeing how you are the CEO of Gearbox. But hypothetically, let's just say it's not your call. But then he says, B, if you are a real fan, you will find a way to make it happen. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Besmo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen. Okay, let's talk about being delusional here. Okay, one thing I find going on across the internet, the people that support these overinflated price tags, these price tags for like Mario Kart World, going, well, back in the 90s, you guys had no problem paying $90 for Donkey Kong Country or $80 for Star Fox, and like, it's completely different. Last time I checked, ladies and gentlemen, in the 90s, a dozen eggs didn't cost you $12. Okay, living in a 2-bedroom apartment didn't cost you $2,400 a month. Lights and electricity didn't cost that much. We didn't have internet bills. I mean, some people might have. Internet was very, very new, dial-up back then in the early 90s. But the price of living wasn't that expensive. And it wasn't like we were buying tons of games. I remember, I went to pawn shops and flea markets and yard sales to buy some of my games. I wasn't going to Toys R Us and paying $80 for games all the time. It was like Christmas and birthdays. So the fact that he wants to point out that, hey, back in 1991, my local game store had Starflight for $80 and he went and bought it. Okay, well, did you live by yourself? Did you live with your parents? Did you have a roommate? What's going on? How much was minimum wage? How much was gas back in the day? How much was eggs back in the day? Randy, huh? How much was eggs back in the day? The cost of living back in the 90s was extremely lower than what it is now. You cannot sit there and say, hey, we're going to charge $80 for these games and you're going to buy it if you're a real fan. If you're a real fan, screw your food. You don't need to buy food for 2 weeks. You don't need to buy eggs. You don't need to buy gas to get back and forth to work. You don't need to pay your rent or your electric bill. You don't need to pay your internet bill. You don't need to worry about that, because if you're a real fan, you're going to pay for these overinflated games. And that's what's happening. We see some of the best games of 2025 are all budget titles. We're talking Expedition 33, Blueprint, Split Fiction, Oblivion Remake. Like, these are all $50 to $40 games. And then you have corporations like Nintendo going, hey, we're going to charge $80 for a Mario Kart game. I'll just stick with Mario Kart 8. Like, I'll just stick with that. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, it'll last me another 10 years. And then, Borderlands coming out. The problem I have with this is the arrogance of these people, because people like Randy Pitchford they actually believe this, and they do not care. They actually believe, like, if you are a real fan, you will make this happen. I'm a real fan of a lot of things, right? I am a massive fan of a lot of things. I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy. I don't know if I would drop $80 on Final Fantasy. I got the Xanark and Abe tattoo on my forearm. If that doesn't make me a real fan, I don't know what does. Doesn't mean I'm going to drop $80 on the game. When you get older, you start to prioritize different things in life. Like, I need to make sure I have money in my banking account in case of emergency. When you start pricing everything that goes on in the world, all your bills and utilities and, groceries and all that stuff, games are sort of like the last thing that you worry about in your life. It's a hobby. And your hobby shouldn't bankrupt you or make you go homeless. Doesn't matter if you're a real fan or not. Right? If you're buying 1 or 2 games a year, 100%, Randy. If Borderlands was like only the second game you were going to buy this year, let's say you're going to buy Call of Duty and Borderlands. Those are the 2 games you're going to buy this year. Yeah, then I can see where, people are like, okay, I'll drop $80 on it. But if you're someone who is a gamer that wants to play games, this is very difficult times. I really enjoy Game Pass. Right now, that's sort of what I'm doing. I'm playing everything on Game Pass. Because right now, stuff is tight right now. Financially, stuff is tight. The economy is tight. So I have Game Pass, and whatever's really on Game Pass, I'm playing. And then I wait for Steam sales or PlayStation Store sales where games go on for like 50, 60% off. And I can pick up like 3 or 4. I'd rather pick up 2 to 3 games for $60 to $80 than spend $80 on a game that I might not even like. Have you guys ever done that? Where you guys paid for a game and you just did not like it? I've done that before. Final Fantasy 16, I paid $80, or not $80 for. I paid $70 for Final Fantasy 16 on PlayStation, and I did not like the game. I had a miserable time playing that game. And guess what? Either I trade it in and only get 15% of the value, or I'm stuck with it. Guess what? I'm stuck with it. But yeah, this is so tone deaf right now from people like Randy Pitchford, where they can actually sit there and say, hey, guess what? You're not a real fan. You are not a real fan, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not pay overpriced for these games. Are you kidding me? That's absolutely insane. But anyway, that is my thoughts on it, guys. What do you think about this gaming market where these gaming companies and these CEOs and corporations just feel like they can charge you whatever, and they always go back to the well of, well, in the 90s, but they don't talk about how things were cheaper in the 90s, how a lot of those cartridges had special chips and circuit boards, and that cost more to manufacture, especially when we live in an era where all these games are digital. It ain't like they're putting extra effort printing a disc or putting circuit boards or anything or special artwork. How do you guys feel about that? Please leave those comments in the comment box below. If you guys can hit that like and subscribe button, help build this channel, I would appreciate it. Until next time, as always, I'm Robert Storms. Thank you for watching.